I'm Cassandra, 34, a dedicated school counsellor who returned home early for Thanksgiving, hoping to surprise my husband Marcus. After 5 years of what seemed like a perfect marriage, I never expected what awaited me. Our house was eerily quiet except for Marcus's stepfather Warren sitting in a rocking chair. A note on the table revealed the unthinkable. Marcus had left on a cruise with his ex-wife. Warren opened one eye and said, "Shall we begin? Before I continue this shocking story, where are you watching from? Hit subscribe." And like if you've ever been blindsided by someone you trusted, the life I had built seemed perfect before that fateful Thanksgiving morning. I'd worked hard to establish my career as a school counsellor, dedicating myself to helping troubled teens navigate their most difficult years. My office at Westlake High was my sanctuary, a place where I made a real difference in young lives. The colourful, motivational posters and comfortable chairs created a safe space where students could open up about their struggles. Marcus and I met 7 years ago at a charity fundraiser for educational programs in underserved communities. He stood out immediately, tall, confident, with an easy smile and thoughtful questions about my work with at-risk youth. As an investment banker at Meridian Financial, he moved in different circles than I did, but we connected instantly over our shared passion for making a difference, albeit in different ways. Our courtship was a whirlwind of fancy restaurants, weekend getaways, and deep conversations that lasted until dawn. Within 2 years, we were married in a beautiful ceremony at the Boston Botanical Gardens. Everyone commented on what a perfect match we were, the compassionate counsellor and the successful businessman with a heart of gold. We purchased our colonial-style home in an upscale Boston suburb 3 years ago. It was beyond what I thought we could afford, but Marcus insisted we deserved it. The spacious kitchen with marble countertops, the cosy den with built-in bookshelves, the backyard perfect for the family. We hoped to have someday. It all seemed like a dream come true. I spent countless weekends painting walls, planting flowers in the garden, making that house our home. Marcus's family situation was complicated. His parents divorced when he was 12, and his relationship with his stepfather Warren was visibly strained. Warren had been a lieutenant colonel in the army, a man of strict discipline and traditional values who never seemed to approve of Marcus's choices. During the rare occasions when Warren visited, the tension was palpable. Marcus would become withdrawn, almost reverting to adolescent behaviour, defensive and eager to prove himself. Warren's health had been declining over the past year. He'd been diagnosed with early-stage Parkinson's, and Marcus occasionally mentioned that he might need more support soon. I always expressed willingness to help, though Warren made me uneasy with his critical gaze and backhanded compliments. My own family lived across the country in Arizona. My father's respiratory issues made Boston's harsh winters impossible for them to visit, and my demanding schedule at school limited my trips west. That's why this Thanksgiving was so important. It would be the first holiday I'd host in our home, creating new traditions together. I had planned everything to perfection: an organic turkey ordered from a local farm, my grandmother's recipes for cornbread stuffing, and cranberry relish autumn-themed decorations tastefully arranged throughout the dining room. I'd even handwritten place cards with thoughtful quotes about gratitude for each person. Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I was preparing to leave school early when Jamal, one of my most troubled students, had a crisis. His foster placement was falling apart and he was threatening self-harm. I couldn't leave him. I spent hours coordinating with social services, finding emergency placement, ensuring he was safe. By the time everything was stabilized, it was nearly midnight. I called Marcus to explain I'd be staying at my friend Tara's place near the school instead of driving home that night. He sounded distracted but supportive, saying he understood and would see me tomorrow. There was something off about his voice, a forced cheerfulness, but I attributed it to disappointment about our evening plans being disrupted. The next morning, I drove home early, excited to surprise Marcus. I imagined slipping into bed beside him or perhaps catching him already awake, making coffee in the kitchen. Maybe we could even have a rare quiet morning together before the holiday preparations began in earnest. The house looked different as I pulled into the driveway. Something was missing, but I couldn't immediately identify what. The curtains were drawn, which was unusual. Marcus's car was gone, but I assumed he might have run to the store for last-minute ingredients. The front door creaked as I entered. The house felt different, colder somehow, with an unfamiliar stillness. I called out, "Marcus!" My voice echoed through the entryway. That's when I saw him, Warren, sitting in the antique rocking chair we normally kept in the guest room, now positioned in the center of our living room. He was wearing a faded military sweater, his thin grey hair combed neatly to the side. His hands rested on a wooden cane planted firmly between his feet. "He's not here," Warren said, his voice gravelly and unaffected. He didn't seem surprised to see me. On the coffee table lay a folded piece of paper with my name written in Marcus's distinctive handwriting. My hands trembled as I picked it up and read, "Cassandra, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I've realized I need to follow my heart. Natalie and I have reconnected and we've decided to give our relationship another chance. We're taking the Thanksgiving cruise we always talked about. I know this seems sudden to you, but it's been building for months. Warren needs someone to look after him right now, and you're so good at caring for people. It's what you do. I'll contact you when I return to sort everything out. Please don't try to reach me, Marcus." I stared at the note, reading it over and over, certain this must be some kind of cruel joke. Warren watched me, his face impassive, except for a slight twitch at the corner of his mouth. "Shall we begin?" he asked, opening one eye wider than the other, his expression expectant. I stood frozen in this living room of what had suddenly become an unfamiliar house, my world crumbling around me. My mind refused to process what was happening. I reached for my phone and called Marcus, only to hear the automated message that his phone was out of service range. I tried again and again, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails. "Marcus, I just got home. What's going on? Call me right away." "Marcus, this isn't funny. Where are you? What's this about Natalie? Marcus, William Peterson, you cannot just leave like this. Call me back now." Warren watched me with something that looked like amusement in his roomy eyes. He rocked slowly in the chair, the creaking wood creating an eerie soundtrack to my unravelling life. "He won't answer," Warren finally said. "Ship's already 300 miles offshore by now." I sank onto the couch, my legs no longer able to support me. "How long have you known about this?" "Long enough." Warren adjusted his position with a grimace. "He's been planning it for weeks, ever since he ran into Natalie at that financial conference in Chicago. 3 months ago. Marcus had returned from that trip different, somehow distracted, spending more time on his phone, working later hours. I'd noticed, but dismissed my concerns, trusting him completely. What a fool I'd been. "He's been seeing her behind my back for 3 months. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Warren shrugged. "Probably longer. They never really got over each other, you know." I didn't know. Marcus had rarely spoken about Natalie during our relationship. I knew they'd been college sweethearts who'd broken up over career differences, but he'd always made it seem like ancient history. With shaking hands, I opened our banking app on my phone. The joint savings account we'd built together, $25,000 we'd been saving for a home renovation, was empty. Completely drained, with a transfer to an account I didn't recognize dated 3 days ago. "He took our money," I whispered, the betrayal cutting deeper. Warren made a dismissive sound. "Marriage is expensive. Divorce, even more so." I looked up sharply. "Divorce? He mentioned divorce in the note to you." A thin smile spread across Warren's face. "Not explicitly, But a man doesn't run off with his ex-wife on a luxury cruise if he's planning to come home and play house again. Something compelled me to check social media, a self-destructive impulse I couldn't resist. There it was, on Natalie's Instagram, a selfie of her and Marcus on a ship deck, champagne glasses in hand, the caption reading, "New beginnings with my forever love, #second chances are a real." It had been posted just hours ago. The comments were filled with congratulations from friends who must have known who had kept his secret while smiling to my face. I ran to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left but bitter bile. When I returned, pale and shaking, Warren had moved himself to the dining room. "I need lunch," he announced, as if this were a normal day, as if my entire world hadn't just imploded. "I take my medications at noon with food. Turkey sandwich, light mayo, no tomato." I stared at him in disbelief. "You can't seriously expect me to. Marcus told me you'd take care of things." Warren interrupted, his tone hardening. "I can't prepare my own meals with this tremor. Doctor's orders are very specific about my medication schedule." It dawned on me then Marcus hadn't just abandoned me emotionally and financially. He'd left me responsible for his elderly stepfather with health issues I knew little about. "How long are you planning to stay?" I asked, dreading the answer. Warren settled back in his chair. "Marcus said you'd watch over me until other arrangements could be made. Given my condition, that could take some time." I retreated to the kitchen, mechanically making the sandwich while trying to process everything. When I returned, Warren was examining one of the place cards I'd handwritten for our Thanksgiving table. "Sentimental waste of time," he muttered, dropping it onto the floor. I called my best friend Tara, desperate for support, but her phone went straight to voicemail. That's when I remembered she was visiting her parents in Michigan for the holiday. I had no one to turn to. In desperation, I found the contact information for Marcus's mother Susan, now remarried and living in Florida. When she answered, her hesitation told me everything. "Oh, Cassandra, I was hoping Marcus had talked to you before they left." "You knew?" My voice broke. "You knew he was leaving me." A pause. "He said you two had discussed taking some time apart, that you'd agreed to look after Warren while he sorted some things out." "That's a lie," I nearly shouted. "He left me a note and disappeared. He emptied our savings account." Another pause, longer this time. "I'm sorry, Cassandra. Marcus has always been complicated, but leaving you with Warren wasn't right." "Can you come get him? He's your ex-husband." Susan's voice hardened. "Warren and I have been divorced for 20 years. I have my own life now. Besides, Marcus said you're excellent with difficult cases, that it's literally your job to help people in crisis." Before I could respond, she claimed another call was coming in and hung up. I tried calling back, but she didn't answer. That night, I lay awake in the guest room, unable to face the bed I'd shared with Marcus. From down the hall, I could hear Warren calling out, periodically demanding water, another blanket assistance to the bathroom. Each time I dragged myself up, feeling like a shadow moving through what was once my home. The next day was Thanksgiving. The organic turkey sat uncooked in the refrigerator. The decorations I'd carefully arranged seemed to mock me. I moved through the day in a fog, preparing a simple meal for Warren and myself that neither of us really ate. "Your mashed potatoes are lumpy," Warren complained, pushing away his barely touched plate. "I'm sorry my cooking doesn't meet your standards on the day I discovered my husband is a lying cheat." I snapped back immediately, regretting giving him the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. Warren's eyes narrowed. "Marcus always said you had a temper. Guess he was right about that at least." I bit my tongue until I tasted blood. This was just the beginning, and I was already at my breaking point. The days following Thanksgiving blurred together in a nightmare of abandonment and mounting revelations. Marcus's social media accounts became a torture. I couldn't resist daily updates from the cruise, showing him and Natalie parasailing, dining at the captain's table, posing on pristine beaches. Their happiness was a knife twisting in my heart with every notification. Meanwhile, Warren's demands grew increasingly unreasonable. Nothing I did met his standards. The house wasn't clean enough. Meals weren't prepared to his liking. I was too noisy when he wanted to rest and not attentive enough when he wanted company. The eggs are overcooked, he complained at breakfast 4 days after Thanksgiving. The towels aren't folded correctly, he observed when I brought fresh laundry. Marcus's mother always had dinner ready promptly at 6. He reminded me when work kept me late. When I suggested he might be more comfortable in an assisted living facility where professionals could care for him, his response was chilling. Marcus explained everything to me, Warren said with a cold smile. If you try to send me away, he'll ensure everyone knows you abandoned a disabled veteran in your care. How would that look for a school counselor whose job depends on her reputation for compassion? I felt trapped in my own home, a prisoner to both Warren's needs and Marcus's betrayal. A week after Thanksgiving, I received a call from the credit card company about suspicious activity. To my horror, I discovered Marcus had opened 3 credit cards in my name over the past year, maxed out with cash advances, luxury purchases, and hotel stays dating back months before the Chicago conference. The total debt, $45,000. When I confronted Warren about it, he merely shrugged. Financial planning was never Marcus's strong suit. His father was the same way, always robbing Peter to pay Paul. The next blow came from Marcus's workplace. His assistant called looking for documentation for an extended leave of absence. Marcus had apparently requested 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. He mentioned a family emergency requiring long-term care. She explained awkwardly. We approved 12 weeks of unpaid leave based on the documentation he provided. What documentation? I asked. There was an uncomfortable pause. Medical forms indicating his stepfather needed full-time care with a letter from a physician, and your signature confirming you'd be the primary caregiver. My forged signature. More lies. When I hung up, Warren was watching me from his now permanent position in the living room rocking chair. He was always good at signatures, he remarked almost proudly. Got him in trouble in school once for signing my name on a detention slip. Financial reality began to set in. Without Marcus's income, and with my own position now in jeopardy due to absences and distraction, our mortgage payment loomed like an approaching storm. The credit card debt in my name threatened to destroy my carefully built credit score. Bills arrived daily, adding to the mounting pressure. Marcus had money troubles before, Warren revealed one evening, seemingly enjoying parceling out painful information in small doses. Did he ever tell you about Jessica? Who's Jessica? I asked against my better judgment. Warren smiled, showing yellowed teeth. The girl before Natalie. He did the same thing to her, left her with bills disappeared for months. His pattern is remarkably consistent. I began missing more work as Warren's demands intensified. My principal, Dr. Hammond, called, expressing concern. Cassandra, this isn't like you. Students are asking where you've been, and some of your cases require consistent support. I tried explaining my situation, but the words sounded hollow even to my own ears. My husband abandoned me with his stepfather, emptied our accounts, and committed identity fraud. It sounded like a bad Lifetime movie. Friends who initially expressed sympathy began to distance themselves. Invitations stopped. Phone calls went unanswered. The holiday season approached, making my isolation feel even more acute. Warren seemed to take particular pleasure in accidentally damaging things that mattered to me. My grandmother's hand-painted teacup. My hand tremor is acting up. The framed photo of my college graduation was cleaning and it slipped. My collection of student thank you notes. Thought it was recycling. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I discovered Marcus had rented a storage unit 6 months earlier. Using the spare key he'd always kept in his desk, I found it filled with boxes of his personal items, family heirlooms, and financial documents, all carefully removed from our home, so gradually I hadn't noticed their absence. The final box contained our wedding album. As I opened it with trembling hands, I found every photo defaced my face, crossed out with black marker in each carefully posed shot. On the inside cover, Marcus had written, "The mistake that cost me 7 years." I sat on the cold concrete floor of that storage unit and broke down completely great, heaving sobs that felt torn from the depths of my soul. When I returned home, red-eyed and emotionally raw, Warren was waiting. "Found his stash, did you?" He didn't even pretend not to know. Marcus always was thorough in his planning, gets that from me. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Why did he marry me if he was still in love with Natalie?" Warren studied me with cold eyes. "You were safe, convenient, a good cover while he built his career. Natalie was too demanding, too emotional back then. You were suitable for the time, but not quite good enough to keep him in the end, were you?" His words cut deeper than any physical wound ever could. Exactly 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, a courier arrived at the door with legal papers. Marcus was filing for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The documentation claimed we had mutually agreed to separate, that I had volunteered to care for Warren as part of our separation agreement, and most shockingly, that Marcus was seeking alimony due to career-related stress and income disruption. The papers were accompanied by a financial disclosure that bore no resemblance to our actual situation. It claimed I had separate assets Marcus had no access to, that the credit card debt was for my personal expenses, and that I had agreed to assume the mortgage while Marcus recovered from professional burnout. When I called the attorney listed on the documents, I was told coldly that all communication should go through legal channels and that Marcus was disappointed. I was attempting to renege on our agreement regarding his stepfather's care. I sat at the kitchen table, legal papers spread before me, feeling as though I was losing my grip on reality. Everything about this situation was a twisted version of the truth, yet presented with such confidence that I almost questioned my own memories. Warren shuffled into the kitchen, leaning heavily on his cane. "My condition is worse today," he announced. "The doctor says I need more specialized care. Marcus mentioned you'd be taking me to appointments." "What doctor? When did you speak with a doctor?" I asked, fighting to keep my voice level. "My specialist at Boston Memorial. Marcus arranged a video consultation last week. They're very concerned about my rapid decline." Something about Warren's tone made me suspicious. After he returned to the living room, I called Boston Memorial Hospital and inquired about specialists treating Warren Peterson. To my shock, they had no record of any recent appointments video or otherwise with any patient by that name. When I confronted Warren, he merely smiled. "Memory issues must be affecting you. Stress can do that, you know." That evening, I received a text from an unknown number. "This is Natalie. I want you to know Marcus told me you two were already separated when we reconnected. I never would have. I just learned about Warren. That wasn't right. I'm sorry." Before I could respond, another text arrived. "Marcus and I just got engaged. He doesn't know I'm texting you. Please don't contact me again." Within minutes, their engagement announcement appeared on social media, a photo of them on the cruise ship, Natalie displaying a massive diamond ring that looked suspiciously like the one Marcus's grandmother had promised would come to me. The caption read, "When you know the love of your life has been there all along, #second time forever." The comments revealed a devastating truth. Many of their friends congratulated them on finally making it official after all this time together, suggesting their relationship had been ongoing long before the Chicago conference, perhaps throughout most of my marriage. That night, Warren was particularly demanding. He called for me repeatedly, claiming dizziness, hunger, thirst. Around midnight, after I'd finally fallen into an exhausted sleep, his voice boomed through the house again. "I need something to eat now." I dragged myself to the kitchen, prepared a sandwich, and brought it to him. He took one bite and spat it out. Disgusting! Make something else. When I returned with soup, he knocked the bowl from my hands, sending hot liquid and ceramic shards across the hardwood floor. Clumsy girl, he said with contempt. Clean it up. As I knelt on the floor, picking up broken pieces, Warren delivered the final blow. Marcus told me about your fertility tests, he said casually, that you can't have children. No wonder he went back to Natalie. A man wants his own bloodline to continue. I froze my hands, trembling among the shards. My fertility issues were deeply private, something I'd only shared with Marcus after a year of unsuccessful trying and medical consultations. The doctors had been cautiously optimistic about treatments, but we'd decided to wait until we were more financially stable. That he would share this intimate struggle with Warren, weaponizing my deepest vulnerability, broke something fundamental inside me. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity what was happening. This wasn't just abandonment. It was systematic, emotional destruction. Warren leaned forward in his rocking chair, his eyes glittering in the dim light. Marcus said you'd break eventually. Looks like he was right about that too. I stood slowly still, holding a jagged piece of ceramic. What did you say? Warren's expression shifted, a momentary flicker of uncertainty crossing his face before the mask of contempt returned. You heard me. Marcus knows you'll quit. Run away. Abandon your responsibilities, just like your mother did. My mother. I'd never told Marcus my mother had left us temporarily during my childhood before returning and rebuilding our family. It was another private pain I'd shared only with my husband. Marcus and I had a deal. Warren continued, pressing his advantage. Either you care for me properly, or everyone in your professional circle learns how you abandoned a disabled veteran in your care. Your choice, Cassandra. I stood in the wreckage of my home and marriage, holding a broken piece of my former life, and something inside me, finally, irrevocably, snapped. I woke the next morning with a clarity I hadn't felt since finding Marcus's note. The fog of shock and betrayal had burned away, leaving a steely resolve in its place. While Warren still slept, I made two crucial phone calls. The first was to Laura Delaney, a divorce attorney my colleague had recommended, after hearing a simplified version of my situation. I need help, I said simply when she answered. My husband has abandoned me, committed identity fraud, and is attempting to manipulate me into caring for his elderly stepfather while he starts a new life with his ex. Laura's response was immediate and reassuring. I've heard variations of this story more times than you'd believe. Can you come to my office today at 11? My second call was to my bank, where I spoke with the fraud department about the credit cards opened in my name. They initiated an investigation and placed alerts on my credit report to prevent further damage. When Warren called for his breakfast, I brought it promptly, but didn't engage with his criticisms. My changed demeanour seemed to unsettle him. You look different, he observed suspiciously. I smiled blandly, just accepting my situation. At Laura's office, I laid out the entire story, providing copies of Marcus's note, the legal papers, bank statements showing the drained accounts, and screenshots of the social media posts confirming the timeline of betrayal. Laura listened intently, occasionally making notes. When I finished, she leaned forward. Let me be clear about something, Cassandra. Based on what you've told me, you have no legal obligation to care for Warren Peterson. None. He is not your family member, and no court would uphold a unilaterally imposed caregiving arrangement, especially one presented under such fraudulent circumstances. A weight lifted from my shoulders at her words. As for the financial aspects, she continued, we have strong evidence of identity theft and financial fraud. The credit card companies should reverse those charges once we file police reports. Laura outlined a strategic response to Marcus's divorce, filing a counterclaim highlighting his financial misconduct, abandonment, and attempt to manipulate me into an elder care situation I never agreed to. What about Warren's threats about ruining my professional reputation? I asked. Laura's expression hardened. That's extortion and we'll address it. In the meantime, document everything. Keep records of all interactions with Warren, particularly any threatening statements or admission of coordination with Marcus. My next stop was an elder care specialist recommended by Laura. Jennifer Reyes listened to my description of Warren's supposed medical needs, frowning. Has he been formally diagnosed with Parkinson's? She asked. According to Marcus, yes, but I've never seen documentation. Jennifer nodded thoughtfully. Some of what you're describing doesn't align with typical Parkinson's progression. The inconsistent tremors, the full mobility when he thinks no one is watching. I'd recommend an independent medical assessment. She explained that Warren, as a veteran, likely qualified for VA benefits that could cover appropriate care options from home health services to assisted living facilities, if necessary. You're not responsible for navigating this alone, Jennifer assured me. There are systems in place specifically designed for situations like his. Armed with this information, I began systematically documenting Warren's actual condition versus his claims. I noticed he could move quickly and steadily when he thought I wasn't watching. His tremors conveniently worsened when tasks he disliked needed doing, yet were mysteriously absent when he was eating dessert or examining my personal belongings. I reached out to my friend Elena, a social worker at my school, who provided invaluable professional advice about setting boundaries and identifying manipulation tactics. This is classic emotional abuse, she told me after hearing the situation. The isolation, the constant criticism, the arbitrary rules and demands, these are textbook control techniques. Through careful research, I discovered Marcus's company had a strict ethics policy regarding workplace relationships. Natalie, it turned out, worked in a different department at Meridian Financial, a clear violation of their non-fraternization policy, especially given Marcus's senior position. I purchased inexpensive security cameras for the common areas of the house, informing Warren they were being installed as a safety measure. His behavior immediately moderated, though his verbal jabs continued. "You think some cameras will protect you?" he scoffed. "Marcus has already made sure everyone who matters knows what kind of person you really are." I met his gaze steadily. "And what kind of person is that Warren? Weak, easily manipulated, just like your mother." I didn't take the bait. "My mother taught me something important, actually. She said you can only be fooled if you keep believing the lie. I'm done believing." For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across Warren's face. That evening, I calmly informed Warren of new household rules. "I'll provide reasonable assistance with your legitimate needs. Meals will be served at standard times. I'll help with medications that are actually prescribed by verified doctors. Beyond that, you're responsible for your own entertainment and comfort." Warren's face flushed with anger. "You can't set rules for me. This arrangement was fraudulently presented and has no legal standing." I interrupted. "I've consulted an attorney. You have no legal right to be in this house, and I have no legal obligation to care for you. I'll call Adult Protective Services," he threatened. "Tell them you're neglecting a vulnerable senior." "Go ahead," I replied, holding up my phone. "I've been recording our conversations. I have documentation of your actual medical condition or lack thereof, and evidence of your coordination with Marcus to manipulate me. Would you like to speak directly to the recording?" Warren fell silent, reassessing me with narrowed eyes. The next day brought an unexpected visitor, Susan Marcus's mother. She arrived unannounced, looking uncomfortable as I opened the door. "I've been thinking about our conversation," she said hesitantly. "There are things you should know about Warren, about the patterns he's created in this family." Over coffee, Susan revealed that Warren had orchestrated similar situations throughout their marriage, alienating Marcus from his father and later from a stepfather Marcus had actually bonded with. Warren can't stand Marcus being close to anyone but him, though he'd never admit it, Susan explained. He did the same thing with Marcus's first serious girlfriend in college, and now you. Why didn't you warn me? I asked, the betrayal of her silence cutting deep. Susan looked ashamed. Warren has dirt on everyone, Cassandra. He threatened to reveal things about my past that would have destroyed my current marriage. I was a coward, and I'm sorry. Before she left, Susan offered to help temporarily with Warren. It's the least I can do. I know his manipulation playbook better than anyone. That night, for the first time since Thanksgiving, I slept in my own bed. I changed the sheets, opened the windows to let fresh air blow through, and reclaimed the space that had been mine before Marcus tainted it with his betrayal. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. With my resolve strengthened and a strategy in place, I met again with Laura to develop our legal response. We gathered bank statements, credit card applications with forged signatures, and recordings of Warren's admissions about Marcus's plans. We're filing counterclaims for financial fraud, identity theft, abandonment, and emotional distress, Laura explained. I'm also preparing a restraining order to prevent further financial damage. I met with bank officials who, after reviewing the evidence, agreed to investigate the fraudulent accounts and potentially restore some of the stolen funds. They froze the remaining joint accounts to prevent Marcus from draining any other assets. True to my word, I arranged for an independent medical professional to evaluate Warren. Dr. Kingston was a no-nonsense geriatric specialist who quickly saw through Warren's performance. His baseline physical health is actually quite good for a man his age, Dr. Kingston reported. The tremors appear intentionally exaggerated and inconsistent with Parkinson's disease. While he does have some legitimate age-related issues, they certainly don't require round-the-clock care. Dr. Kingston's assessment confirmed Warren qualified for veterans' benefits that would cover assisted living if necessary, an option that became increasingly attractive as our household tension escalated. 3 weeks into December, just as I was beginning to establish a new normal, Marcus and Natalie returned early from their cruise. I learned about their arrival from a text message from Marcus. "We need to talk. Coming by the house tomorrow at 10. Laura advised me not to meet with Marcus alone. Have someone with you and make sure the security cameras are running." Susan agreed to be present along with Elena from work. When Marcus arrived the next morning, his confident swagger faltered at finding 3 women waiting instead of just me. "What is this?" he demanded, glaring at his mother. "Mum, what are you doing here?" Susan met his gaze steadily. "Supporting Cassandra, something I should have done from the beginning." Marcus looked different, tanned from the cruise, but also somehow smaller than I remembered, less imposing. Natalie hovered behind him, clearly uncomfortable. "I wanted to discuss our situation privately," Marcus said, trying to regain control. "Any discussions can happen with my attorney present," I replied calmly. "I believe you've been served with my counterclaims." Marcus's face flushed. "Those ridiculous accusations, Cassandra, be reasonable. You know I'd never commit identity fraud, drain our joint accounts, abandon me with your stepfather as part of an orchestrated plan to break me emotionally." I finished for him. "Because I have evidence of all of that, Marcus." For the first time, uncertainty flashed across his face. "What evidence?" I smiled. "That's between me and my attorney, but I assure you it's comprehensive." Marcus changed tactics, his voice softening. "Look, things got complicated. I never meant to hurt you. Natalie and I reconnected unexpectedly, and I didn't know how to tell you. So instead you stole from me, lied to me, and set me up to be emotionally tortured by your stepfather." I kept my voice level despite the anger churning inside. Natalie stepped forward, visibly distressed. "Marcus told me you two were separated months ago. He said you'd agreed to all this. I never would have." Her voice trailed off as she looked around the house, noticing the security cameras, the legal documents on the table, Warren sitting silently in the corner, carefully watching the scene unfold. "Warren," Marcus turned to his stepfather, clearly expecting support. Tell them how Cassandra agreed to help during our separation. Warren's expression remained impassive. I only know what you told me, Marcus, that she volunteered to care for me while you sorted things out. The betrayal on Marcus's face was almost satisfying to watch. With his primary ally abandoning the narrative, his carefully constructed story was crumbling. Natalie, let's go, Marcus said abruptly. This isn't productive. As they turned to leave, I called after them. Marcus, the engagement ring. It's your grandmother's, isn't it? The one she specifically wanted me to have. Natalie looked down at her hand, then at Marcus, with new uncertainty in her eyes. The next few days brought a flurry of developments. Marcus attempted damage control at his workplace, but the ethics investigation had already begun after an anonymous tip about his relationship with Natalie and his fraudulent leave documentation. Warren's behavior changed dramatically once he realized Marcus had effectively abandoned him too. The exaggerated symptoms mostly disappeared, replaced by a sullen resignation. My colleagues at work rallied around me after learning a simplified version of what had happened. Dr. Hammond, my principal, approved emergency personal leave with job security guaranteed upon my return. You've supported our students through their crises for years, she told me. Now let us support you through yours. A financial advisor helped me untangle and protect my remaining assets, creating a path toward financial independence despite Marcus's attempts to leave me destitute. A week before Christmas, Marcus reached out again, this time with a very different tone. Natalie had left him after discovering more of his lies, particularly regarding their financial situation. I've made some mistakes, he admitted in a voicemail. Maybe we could talk about trying again. We have history, Cassandra. That counts for something. I didn't bother responding. His transparent attempt at reconciliation, only when his preferred option disappeared, told me everything about his character, or lack thereof. The preliminary court date for our divorce proceedings was set for January. Marcus made several attempts to intimidate me into dropping the financial claims, alternating between threats and pleas for understanding. You'll never win against my attorneys, he warned in one message. Please, Cass, don't do this to us, he begged in another. I remained resolute, strengthened by the support network I'd built and the evidence we'd gathered. With Susan's help, arrangements were made for Warren to move to a veterans assisted living facility where his actual medical needs could be properly addressed. The day he left, he paused at the door. For what it's worth, he said gruffly, you held up better than I expected. Coming from Warren, it was practically an apology. With Warren gone, I reclaimed my house completely, removing every trace of Marcus. I donated his remaining clothes to charity, packed his personal items in boxes for legal retrieval, and rearranged furniture to create spaces that were entirely mine. For the first time since that fateful Thanksgiving morning, I began to feel like myself again, battered but unbroken and growing stronger each day. 6 months after the Thanksgiving that changed everything, I sat in the courtroom as the judge delivered his ruling on our divorce case. Marcus, looking significantly less confident than the man who'd abandoned me, avoided meeting my eyes. In the matter of Peterson versus Peterson, Judge Harmon began, this court finds compelling evidence of financial misconduct by the respondent, Marcus Peterson. The judge detailed his findings, the fraudulent credit card applications, the emptied accounts, the attempted manipulation of the divorce filing to further disadvantage me financially. The court orders full restitution of the misappropriated funds, plus legal fees and compensatory damages, Judge Harmon continued. Furthermore, the attempt to create a fictitious caregiving agreement is found to be without legal merit and borders on elder abuse by misrepresentation. Marcus stared at the table, his attorney whispering urgently in his ear. I felt no joy in the victory, only a profound sense of closure and vindication. The systematic dismantling of Marcus's deception wouldn't erase the pain he'd caused, but it ensured he couldn't inflict similar damage on others without consequences. Outside the courtroom, Laura squeezed my hand. Congratulations, it's officially over. It wasn't just the marriage that was over, but the period of vulnerability and manipulation as well. I had emerged not just intact, but wiser and more resilient. The professional consequences caught up with Marcus shortly after the divorce was finalized. Meridian Financial concluded their ethics investigation, finding multiple violations, including falsifying leave documentation and engaging in an unreported relationship with a subordinate. Though they didn't publicly announce his termination, his professional profile was quietly removed from their website. I decided to sell our house. Too many painful memories lingered in its walls. The real estate market had improved, allowing me to make a modest profit despite the mortgage challenges. I found a bright, cozy apartment closer to my school, a space that was entirely mine, untainted by betrayal. Returning to work brought its own form of healing. My students' genuine needs and resilience reminded me daily of what truly mattered. I threw myself into developing new support programs, particularly for teens navigating family breakdown and trust issues challenges I now understood from painful personal experience. Inspired by my own journey, I started a support group for individuals recovering from financial and emotional abuse in relationships. What began as a small gathering of 4 women in a community centre grew to weekly meetings of 15 to 20 people, sharing resources, strategies, and hope. 3 months after the divorce was finalised, I received an unexpected letter from Warren. His handwriting was steadier than I remembered the paper high-quality stationery from his assisted living facility. Cassandra, it began, I am not a man accustomed to admitting fault. At my age, change comes reluctantly, if at all. However, my participation in Marcus's scheme against you has weighed on me. My behaviour was unconscionable. This is not an excuse, merely an explanation. I have spent a lifetime manipulating others to maintain control, a habit that has cost me every meaningful relationship. You deserved none of what happened. For whatever it may be worth at this late date, I am sorry. The letter wasn't a magical healing balm, but it represented something important. Accountability, however delayed. I chose to acknowledge the apology without extending further engagement, a boundary that felt right for my continued healing. More surprising was the tentative friendship that developed between Natalie and me after a chance encounter at a professional networking event. Initially awkward, our conversation revealed how similarly we had been manipulated by Marcus. He told me you were cold career obsessed, that you'd agreed to separate months earlier, she confessed over coffee. I was an idiot to believe him without question. We both believed what we wanted to believe about him, I replied, finding unexpected common ground with the woman I'd once considered my nemesis. As another Thanksgiving approached, I faced the anniversary of my world shattering with trepidation. Rather than allow the day to remain forever tainted, I decided to reclaim it by hosting a chosen family dinner for friends who had supported me throughout the ordeal. Elena, from work, Laura, who had become a friend beyond our attorney-client relationship, and others who had formed my safety net when I needed it most. I prepared my grandmother's recipes again, this time without the pressure of perfection. As we gathered around my small apartment dining table, the conversation and laughter flowing freely, I realized how far I had come. There had been red flags with Marcus. I'd chosen to ignore his deflection when financial discussions arose, his subtly controlling behaviors masked as care, his readiness to blame others for his missteps. I had mistaken his confidence for character, his charm for substance. These were painful lessons, but invaluable ones that would protect me moving forward. Setting healthy boundaries became my new foundation. I learned to trust again, but with wisdom rather than blind faith. I began dating, casually approaching new relationships with optimistic caution rather than fearful withdrawal. My professional life flourished in unexpected ways. The authenticity with which I could now speak about overcoming betrayal and rebuilding trust resonated deeply with my students. Dr. Hammond nominated me for a regional award in counselling excellence, citing my innovative work with students from disrupted family situations. My relationship with my parents deepened as well. The crisis had prompted more honest conversations about our family history, including my mother's temporary departure during my childhood, a parallel to my own abandonment that had left unseen scars. This new understanding brought healing to long-dormant wounds. Marcus made one final attempt to re-enter my life almost a year after Thanksgiving. He appeared outside my school looking significantly less polished than the successful investment banker I'd married. "Cassandra, please, I've lost everything, my job, my reputation. I need your help." I regarded him calmly, feeling neither hatred nor pity, just a clear-eyed recognition of who he truly was. "No, Marcus, you don't need my help. You need to take responsibility for your choices." His face hardened. "After everything we meant to each other, you're really this cold." "This isn't coldness," I corrected him. "It's self-respect, something I should have practiced much earlier with you." As I walked away, I realized I felt no lingering pain, no rage, no desire for further retribution. Marcus had become a chapter in my story, not the defining narrative. In my journal that night, I wrote, "Betrayal doesn't break you unless you give it permission to define you." Today, I recognize the strength that was forged in last year's fire. I am not who I was before I am more resilient, more authentic, more aware of both darkness and light in others and in myself. The experience that was meant to destroy me instead transformed me. The journey from that Thanksgiving morning to the woman I had become wasn't one I would have chosen, but it had revealed depths of strength I never knew I possessed. The betrayal that once felt like an ending had become, against all odds, a beginning. Life doesn't always give us what we expect, but sometimes what we need to become who we're truly meant to be. Have you ever experienced a betrayal that ultimately made you stronger? Share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to hear more true stories of resilience and transformation. Remember, it's not about how hard you fall, it's about how you rise afterward. Thank you for listening to my journey.